So, in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about how to bounce back from failed startups. And I've had 7 of them. So, I'm going to be sharing with you how you can do that and what is the cause behind the failure. And over the last few years, I've learned a lot from a lot of people. I've implemented a lot of things and I've structured business partnerships with billion-dollar company CEOs, top lawyers in the UAE that have advised on a $13 billion bank merger. I've met and talked to over 400 plus healthcare companies that had revenues of more than $1 million. And in some cases, I've also met companies which had a market cap of $10 billion. This is a public company based in UAE, which had operations globally. So I've met them as well, and I've negotiated quite a few with quite a few multi-million dollar companies. So that's the base of my knowledge. I've done over 50 different courses and programs. I've read a lot of books. I've had many mentors in various fields. And I'm going to be sharing with you how I got started and how I failed initially and what I discovered with every failure and how you can bounce back from a failed startup. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, click the subscribe button. These days I'm making one video a day, so I try to add a lot of value, and hopefully you can learn from the pain that I've gone through. So my first business venture was when I was 17 years old. So it's about 13 years ago. I did a seminar that changed my life. It opened up my communications. I was pretty low confident and had low self-esteem from school. And this 3-day seminar changed my life. It was called the Landmark Forum that I did when I was 17 years old. And this is a seminar that my mentor, Dan Pena, who lives in a castle, had also done in the 80s or 90s. And at that time, this seminar was known as EST. So I did that, and I came up with this idea that, you know what, I want to share what I got. I even raised some money for a cancer project that I had because my father passed away from cancer, and I was all fired up. I'd raised a couple of $1,000, and I donated this, and I could speak on stage, and I was totally confident that I'll be able to start a business. And I started off with a project idea to kind of direct it at young people, between 12 to 15 or 12 to 17 years old. And I was going to inspire them that, you know what, you have a tremendous power inside of you and you can change the world. It was kind of like a motivational, inspirational course that I had thought about. And so I started calling my network. I even raised capital to book a hall and everything. And my vision was to bring 200 people in the room, and I'm going to charge them, 20 or $40. And we're going to make, a couple of $1,000 and help a bunch of people, inspire a bunch of people. And then maybe we'll turn it into a business. And if it's successful, we'll have them invite their guests as well. So I raised about $1,000, booked a hall, a cheap hall, close to my house, 30 minutes drive. And there was a month that I kept to fill the hall of 200 or 400 people. So I started making calls. I didn't start making calls until a few weeks. So last week, just before the seminar, I started making the calls, and then I stopped making the calls. And the last 3 days, I really make the calls. And just before the seminar, I had a party. And the idea was we would sell the seminar at this party. And we didn't really sell the seminar, we were just having drinks. And still I had this expectation in my mind that people would just show up. So I walk in, and 8 people had showed up out of all the calls that I had made, and they had come with the money. And they came in, and we entered the hall, and the staff member at the hall, this cheap hall, was playing Bollywood music when I entered in a suit with my little audience. Uh, and I was like, I didn't know what to do. The seats were torn, the cloth on the seats were torn. And I saw that, and I just immediately start crying. And my audience, which were my friends, who was supposed to pay me. I returned their money, of course, and I was crying and crying and crying and didn't stop. And my brother was there and he was like, "It's okay, it's fine." And I just kept crying and crying because one of my friends lost his money. I kept saying sorry to him, and I was extremely guilty. And it was extremely traumatic experience for me. I laugh and I chuckle because things have changed now. But I started to understand. I kept crying the whole night, and some of the people even made fun of me and said, "We knew this was going to happen. Why did you attempt this?" Um, and and I realized that there are many limitations that I have, and I have a lot of arrogance, and I don't understand things. So that was probably the first time in my life where I kind of went into a self reflection. Before that, I never reflected on my actions and how my actions matter and how my actions create the consequences that I have, the results that I have. And had no sense of self reflection, and I had no knowledge of how to do this. And I had a lot of arrogance, and my ears were closed. No matter what anybody wanted to tell me, I didn't want to listen. It's too rebellious. Um, and that was the first time I kind of was forced through this failure to kind of reflect into myself that I don't know something, that I lack leadership abilities. Otherwise, this guy would not be playing the Bollywood music. That I didn't understand how to price things. If I had priced it properly, I would be able to afford a better hall where these things would not have happened. I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to market. I couldn't reach a lot of people. I had a Facebook page with a little poster on it. You see some of those people who put one poster on their Instagram and it says coming soon and they're launching a fashion line. So it was kind of like that thing. So I completely misassessment of how much action is required, how much capital is required, and how to talk, how to carry yourself, how to conduct yourself, and more importantly, I was a mess. I needed to work on myself. I wasn't ready to work on anybody else. So I made a promise to myself that I'm going to work on myself. And within a year, I quit smoking, I quit alcohol, and started to discipline myself through Hatha Yoga. And I did over, 6 or 7 programs. I started to work with this foundation called Isha Foundation, Sadhguru. He's blowing up right now on the internet. So this is in 2013, 2014. So a long time ago. And I started to work in this organization. I started to learn about operations. And then I started to work at another organization as a volunteer making phone calls. And this organization had helped, transform my communication, my mindset, and things of that nature. And they had great training programs. So there were a lot of coaches that I had who corrected my communication, how to speak, and how to measure the impact of your communication in the listener's mind. So I did a lot of, that stuff. I worked on myself. I got very disciplined. I was doing 3, 4 hours of yoga every day. Um, and again, I launched another startup. And then I was like, you know what? Now this is something real. This has again changed my life. Maybe I can share this with the world. I went, got trained as a yoga teacher, came back in India, and I started to sell yoga courses. And this time I had 1,750 hours of training with the best guy, Sadhguru, and I invested a couple of years. I had a lot of practice. I knew what I was talking about. And, I had a lot of acne, which had got clear, so I had real results. So I was like, you know what? I can feel confident I can sell this. So I sold, I invested $1,000, got $1,000 back. And selling yoga in India is like selling sand in the desert. There's a yoga institute in every um, street corner. So another lesson, I mean, just because you work on yourself doesn't mean that all of a sudden a particular industry is going to become profitable in a particular market. So there's a lot of advice on how do you, take cold showers and all of a sudden the industry you're in will start becoming profitable and all the solutions to your life is going to come from a cold water shower or waking up at 5 a.m. I mean, I realized that that's not how it works. Just because I got disciplined doesn't mean that I've now understood what entrepreneurship is and how the numbers work and how sales work and how all of these things work. So then I was like, you know what? My first business had a problem, not enough people. Second business also had a problem, not enough customers. I need to get trained in sales and marketing. And I started to get trained in sales and marketing, started to read a lot of books, do a lot of courses, one after the other. And this is where I started to consume knowledge like anything. So that was really the key. When something goes bad, when something goes wrong, it's typically something that you don't know, something that you didn't account for, scenarios that you did not account for. You thought you have a certain problem and then you look for a certain solution. But a lot of the times, even the assessment of the problem is not accurate. So I realized that ignorance is the biggest reason for a startup failure. And that this is where the thirst for real knowledge, thirst for real education started in my life, where I stopped talking. In fact, I was a big talker when I was really young, but I stopped talking and I opened my ears and I started to listen. I became humble. After all the failures, I became humble and I started to really go into a deep self reflection. What do I not know? Because school didn't teach me, college didn't teach me. I need to go and find real teachers, real mentors who had done things in life. And I went mentor after mentor after mentor. I did courses with Ty Lopez, Russell Brunson, Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, Real Social Dynamics. This is for dating. I did many, many, many courses with them. Read a lot of books in various different subjects. Spent a lot of money because I knew that I couldn't afford to lose money in business and time. So I knew that the more knowledge I have, the more leverage that I can get in advanced, um, the less of a failure I'm going to have, and the more the odds of success are going to increase. And finally, I landed at Dan Peña's Castle seminar. I even did courses with Dan Locke, which happened to be at the seminar. So, and Dan mentioned the whole thing had started to get around sales and marketing, and I even started to make a little bit of money. And I was like, you know what? I want to go for the big money now. And this is where I found Dan Pena, and he shared with me that you don't have to do any of this. It's fine if you want cash flow. Yes, you can do that. But if you want to create the big money, you just start acquiring companies. And that's when everything opened up, because I would not have even thought about the possibility of something like this, of acquiring another business. And that's when, I came back and he said, but how do you build a team around it? I've never done it. And he was like, you can get people and you can offer them free founders equity in shares in your company, and you can structure a partnership like that. I was like, wow, I don't think that would work. And I tried and I structured a partnership with a $1 billion company CEO. And he says, go into healthcare. I said, I know nothing about healthcare. Well, then he said, get healthcare industry experts. And I got them. And that's when the whole thing turned around. And the reason, and all of a sudden, I was in a position where I'm advised by the top lawyers, top healthcare advisors, $1 billion company CEOs. And he says, raise capital, from banks. And I got a $10 million term sheet from a bank. I started meeting multi-millionaires and my whole life changed. And what changed it was knowledge. And the reason I was failing was lack of knowledge. And this is the really real key here. And then, I sat down and the company's financial statements, as I was looking at companies to buy, I would look at their financial statements and I was like, I don't understand a thing. I just have to all the time rely on the people, bother them, and I need to learn this. And then I picked up another book and I learned how to read a financial statement. All of a sudden, I knew how to do it. So now I don't know every single thing about business. I don't think anybody does. You have to rely on other people. But I've understood quite a lot. And what I have understood is that most of the failure from startups come from a lack of knowledge. And when I say knowledge, there is a fake knowledge and real knowledge. Fake knowledge is what you get in school, in colleges, where tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people go and come out of it, and they still don't know how things work. And all the advice around habits, that habits are going to do something. magical all of a sudden is going to make a non-profitable region into a profitable region, or a non-profitable industry into a profitable industry. There's only so much you can work and govern yourself. There are market dynamics at play that are beyond you. So you have to be able to analyze them. So then I started to understand market analysis, how to pick markets, how to watch with the movement of money, how to read financial statements, how to negotiate. I started doing courses on negotiation, reading books on negotiation, and I started to get trained. As I started to get trained, I started landing up in powerful positions, including I negotiated with a guy who had raised about $1 billion and did 64 healthcare acquisitions. And he looked at me and he was like, "How did you arrive at this position at such a young age?" And I was like, "I started early, so I failed early. And then over 10 years, I did a lot of studying, and I had many, many mentors before I again attempted to get into business. And I had some more startups which failed again. And until I got so frustrated that I accepted that I don't understand something. And then what I need is knowledge. And I still see to this day, a lot of the people that, um, I used to talk to, that they have this sense of arrogance about them. I came back from Dan Peña's Castle seminar, which was about buying companies. And I come back and I mean, I shared it a little bit briefly with people around me. And then the next day I go and I start explaining something, and they said, "Oh, I know this. This is 60/40, right? The 60/40 model of structuring deals." Yeah, yeah, I know, I know. This guy hasn't been to the Castle seminar. He hasn't executed. He just heard a few things that I was talking about, and he just assumes that he understands everything. And there are political dynamics he doesn't understand. There are presentation. There are words that he doesn't understand. The whole picture, how to pick markets, how to read financial statements, how to negotiate deals with the seller. But in his mind, he understands. He believes he understands. And this is what I saw, the danger. And I kind of could see um, myself in him, my younger self in him, that this guy believes that he understands, and I believed I understand. And he's going to attempt it, and he's going to not be successful at it. And then he's going to understand he doesn't really understand it. He's missed something. So that's really the key. And this is something that I would recommend, is that when you attempt something that you don't understand, you have to admit to yourself that you don't understand it. And then find somebody that you can learn from, and somebody who does understand. And what that can do for you is bridge the gap, and real knowledge is extremely powerful. It changes your mind. I've seen this with my clients. When I start talking and I share from my experience, their faces change. They see something they didn't see before. And maybe they're reaching out to me because they failed, they attempted something, but they see something in what I say, and it changes their perspective. And that's what real knowledge feels like. Fake knowledge will put you to sleep because you know that it's bullshit, it doesn't work. And that's not the knowledge that I'm talking about. When I say acquiring knowledge, I mean real knowledge from real experience. And that can be expensive. Obtaining real knowledge can be expensive because it comes from experience. It really comes from experience. The real knowledge happened when I executed on my mentor's advice, and I made the phone calls, and I got in the ground, and I made mistakes there, and I learned from there. And that's when I started to actually discover the real knowledge. It took me many years to understand the things that I teach now. um, and now, I feel all of the knowledge that I acquired is coming together, even with this channel. All of you, you're listening, and I'm appreciative of that, because there was a time when nobody wanted to listen. Of course, I didn't have something of value. I didn't even have empathy to be able to understand what you're going through. And now I ask you, what are you going through? And I want to help. And I cultivated these values because I've been through a lot of pain, from failure. So that's really the key here. A lot of lessons, you know, Understand sales and marketing. That's for one. It's one of the most fundamental skills that you can have. Understand how to raise capital, understand how mergers and acquisitions work if you have an ambition to create wealth, and acquire knowledge to develop these skills. Because if you go in a market with low intellectual property, your knowledge is your intellectual property, or intellectual property that comes just from schools and colleges and neighborhood that you may um, be born into, then the odds of failure are tremendous. And when you have a guide, you have a mentor, or you have several mentors, and this is something I would recommend. I do a lot of courses. I still do a lot of courses. Anybody who I find it inspiring and have created exceptional results in a field, I'll take a course. I invest quite a lot of time in it. In fact, when I'm not working, I'm doing a course. I don't watch a lot of TV shows. I didn't for about 8, 9 years. All I did was watch courses and gather knowledge and grow the size of what I understand about the world and about people. So I recommend doing that, and that's the only way that you'd get good at um, creating companies is when you understand, when you enhance your understanding, and when you educate yourself. The rich, the difference between rich and poor is they understand some things that the poor don't. It's period. And the second thing that makes them rich is their contacts. But how do you build those contacts? Come from knowledge again. So another saying, your network is your net worth. That, but to build your network, you need the knowledge. So no matter what it is, it almost always links to this one thing, which is knowledge. And that's the lesson of this video, and that's the healing of the wound. And this is the reason I was able to laugh when I was telling the story. For a long time, I didn't even want to remember it because I was so ashamed of it. But now I can laugh at it that, you know what, I attempted something. That's always a good thing, to attempt something. I discovered something. And if I didn't fail at that, my ears would still be closed and I would have a belief that I understand how business works. I would have a belief that I have what it takes, that I've understood what is to be done. And I'm glad that I don't have that belief. And my ears are forever open. And I hope they never close because I want to continue to learn, continue to grow, and continue to expand what I understand. And it's a continuous process. Warren Buffett reads books and expands his knowledge. Charlie Munger did. And they're all the time collecting data about the market. And they never take this position that they understand or they know what to do. So that's the lesson here. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're interested in getting mentored by me, learning from my experience, shorten your time horizon, time is money, and also reduce a lot of trauma and pain because starting companies can be traumatic, especially when you don't know what you're doing. If you want to position yourself to acquire already profitable companies in your region, reach out to me. I have a mentorship program where I train individuals how to do it. Some of my clients are at the moment, as we speak, negotiating with multi-billion-dollar law firms, if you can believe it. So that's what I've created. They've built partnerships with some of the most high-profile executives in the country. These people are in their 20s. And the reason they're able to do this is because I learned from a lot of mentors who were much older than I am. And then I executed and I dumbed it down further and broke it down to a level that people can understand. People my age or close to my age can understand. Making things in a very simple language. You watched my videos, I break things down into simple language. And that's the reason my clients are able to get result. And I'm glad they are. And I'm glad that they don't have to go through the pain that I went through. So if you're interested, reach out to me. And I'm offering one free consultation call where I can talk a little bit more about. I can share with you what the mentorship program is about, what this business model is of acquiring companies. You can make a lot of money from it potentially if you do the right things. And maybe you find it interesting. And if we get along, we'll work together. So if you are that, reach out to me, email me. I'm going to leave the links below and I'll talk to you soon.